Okay, now we looking good. So my guy Caleb, right? Is he going to be ranked today? I have a funny feeling, maybe, maybe not. Who knows, right? We are going to continue our quarterback rankings right now, number 26 through 21. Okay. And Zach, before we recap what we have so far, I want to reiterate for the new people watching this show for the first time, our criteria for these rankings. Okay. So for me, real quickly here, eye test, right? With my own two eyes. Okay. With my own two eyes. These are the 32 best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. That's part of the criteria. Number two is projections. I'm projecting you into next year. So maybe you showed me a little something, okay, last year, right? And maybe I'm going to rank you a little bit higher, right? Because I'm projecting you into next year. I want to predict the future. My nickname is Lil Shadamas. So I want to make, predictions that I could turn back on and be like, Lil, I was on the money, okay? And another one would be you have to play at least 65 to 70% of the games, which means yeah, you don't have to start week one, but more than likely you're going to be starting week one to be ranked here, unless you play at least 70% of the games on the back end. So Zach, I'll let you do the same thing, and you can start off after that by recapping what you have so far, and I'll do the same, and then I'll send it back over to you to kick us off.
Yeah, dude, sounds good. So I'll start off with my criteria. It's pretty simple. I think it's a mixture of a lot of things. Your overall resume, like what you've done to this point, that matters. How you played last season, that matters. That's really the most recent sample size that we have when it comes to this list. Projections, those are very important to me. I said this last week. When we look back on this list in a year, 2 years, 3 years, I want to look back and say, oh, okay, that made sense. A lot of these rankings, you might not agree with them right now, but my goal is when the season's over, you're going to look back and say, okay, I see where this guy was coming from, and it was a pretty good list. That's my goal with this. And to recap mine from last week, I had Bo Nix of the Broncos at number 32, Will Levis of the Titans at number 31, Derek Carr of the Saints at number 30, Jacoby Brissett of the Patriots at 29, Daniel Jones of the Giants at 28, and Russell Wilson of the Steelers now at 27. And without further ado, I think I'm ready to get into it.
All right, Zach, go right ahead, man.
All right, well, we will start off with number 26, and I'm going to go with Gardner Minshew of the Raiders. Now, I'll start off by saying I'm not even 100% sure that Gardner Minshew is going to be the Raiders' starting quarterback in week one. I think the Raiders are one of the few teams in the NFL where we could actually see a legit quarterback competition in training camp that could really go either way. Antonio Pierce even came out and said that Aiden O'Connell, the second-year pro out of Purdue, he's going to have a crack at winning this job. Like, he has a shot. So I'm curious to see how that goes. But I think ultimately it's going to be Minshew. And I'll say this, I like Minshew. I do think that with all of the piss-poor quarterback play we've seen in the NFL recently, he deserves a chance to be on an NFL field consistently. You just cannot have a bigger coaching downgrade and a situation downgrade, you could even make the case, from he's going from Shane Steichen to Luke Getsy. And that's a shame because I actually think the Raiders have talent on the offensive side of the ball. Devontae Adams is still an elite wide receiver. I think Jacoby Myers is one of the most underrated players in the NFL. They even drafted Brock Bowers from Georgia, who should be good. I'm not sure if anyone has seen this dude, Zamir White, their new starting running back to replace Josh Jacobs, but there have been pictures of him going viral recently of he's just jacked, like he's going to work this offseason. So they definitely have talent around Minshew. I just wonder how big of a drop-off is he going to take after that coaching change. And I do think that after the season, the Raiders are going to be in either prime position to draft the quarterback, or the more likely outcome, in my opinion, is that they're just going to give Dak Prescott a bag and make him the highest paid quarterback in the entire NFL. I just feel like the Raiders are a team that want as much star power as possible in that city, and they're missing that right now. And my last point on Minshew and the Raiders, I'm really starting to think and wonder if they just decided to bring back Antonio Pierce as their head coach because they know deep down a few years ago they made a massive mistake moving on from interim head coach at the time, Rich Bisaccia, who was another interim coach. He had a great run in the playoffs, or getting them to the playoffs, and that led them to hiring Josh McDaniels, which turned out to be a disaster. I like Antonio Pierce, but I'll just end by saying that really shouldn't be a way to run your franchise. So I will have Gardner Minshew at number 26 of the Raiders. At number 25, I'm going to go with Jaden Daniels, the rookie number 2 pick from the Washington Commanders. And I think Daniels' situation in college was very similar to Bo Nix, where he made a great decision. He took advantage of the new rules in college sports, the transfer portal. He was a guy that was a very good player at Arizona State to a guy who became a great player at LSU. And we're also going into year number 2 of the Joe Harris era in Washington. And I think Joe Harris made a great move this offseason, hiring their new GM, Adam Peters from the 49ers. But Lil, I got to tell you, I would be much higher on Jaden Daniels and much higher on this Washington Commanders team going into this season if they could have just secured Ben Johnson from the Detroit Lions as their new head coach, opposed to Dan Quinn. Like, we already know what Dan Quinn is as a head coach. He's not very good. He'll always really be known to me as the guy who blew a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl. It really confuses me why Kyle Shanahan deserves so much blame for that game when he was just the offensive coordinator. I know he was calling plays, but Dan Quinn was the head coach. He could have told Kyle Shanahan, yo, like, run the ball here and there. I'm the boss. Like, he deserves more responsibility for that game than Kyle Shanahan. But anyways, I think Daniels is going to be pretty good. I think he's going to have a chance this season to break the all-time rookie quarterback rushing record, which ironically was also broken by a Commanders quarterback in 2012, Robert Griffin III. And I do like the weapons around Daniels in Washington. You know, they have Terry McLaurin. They bring in Austin Eckler. They have Brian Robinson, Jahan Dotson, De'Ami Brown. But my number one concern for Washington, though, is that offensive line. They need to find a way to keep Jaden Daniels healthy. And Daniels, he was very good at LSU, and I thought he was fully deserving of winning that Heisman Trophy. My concern with him, though, is that he's skinny, and he just took some massive hits in college, and he was able to get up when he took those hits, but we all know there's a huge difference taking those big hits in college compared to the NFL. We know in the NFL that one bad hit could just ruin everything. And this Commanders franchise, ironically, they know all too well that no matter how talented your young quarterback is, you really need to prioritize his health and keeping him upright. We know what happened with Robert Griffin III. Injuries just ruined his career, and that's a huge what if within this Commanders franchise. So I will have Jaden Daniels at number 25. At number 24, I'm going to go with Bryce Young of the Panthers. And I'll say this, I think Bryce Young's stock literally couldn't be any lower than it is right now. So I'm going to buy a little bit of it. We know that he really struggled as a rookie, but I also think we don't talk enough about how poor of a situation he was in when he walked into the Carolina Panthers building. People forget that when the Panthers first made that blockbuster trade with the Bears to move up to the number 1 overall pick, the original thought was that they were going to draft CJ Stroud. We know that Frank Reich has had a ton of success with big, lengthier, taller quarterbacks like Carson Wentz and Phillip Rivers. And all of the reports were that Frank Reich wanted to draft CJ Stroud, but the owner, David Tepper, came in and said, nope, we're drafting Bryce Young. So the guy that was coaching Bryce Young last year didn't even want him. So I think in that regard, it was the right decision to move on from Reich, especially considering how bad Bryce Young looked. But I do think there actually is a chance that the Panthers improve after their offseason, and I think Bryce Young will as well. I like the move bringing in Deontay Johnson. He's not my favorite player in the world, but there's no doubt he's a talented player that makes this group of weapons better. They also traded for a pretty good wide receiver, or they drafted a pretty good wide receiver, I should say, Xavier Legette from South Carolina. I think he's a guy that will make a legitimate impact as a rookie. He's cut from that same cloth as DK Metcalf. He's just a huge body that is going to be able to make contested catches. I like drafting running back Jonathan Brooks from Texas. I think him and Miles Sanders in that backfield is a nice 1-2 punch. And then we know the most important move that Carolina made this offseason, and that was hiring, of course, Dave Canales from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to become their new head coach. This guy turned around Geno Smith's career in Seattle. He turned around Baker Mayfield's career in Tampa Bay. He literally has a track record of fixing young quarterbacks, and I think that's what he's going to do with Bryce Young. I will have Bryce at number 24. At number 23, I'm going to go with the guy that I'm a little bit conflicted on right now. I'm curious to see where you have him, Lil, but I'm going to go with Geno Smith of the Seahawks at number 23. I think that Seattle, right off the bat, they're going to miss Pete Carroll. That guy is one of the best coaches of this generation. And although I like Mike Macdonald, I think he's a defensive genius, but I think the situation in Seattle is going to take him some time. Now, I do love the hiring of their new offensive coordinator, Ryan Grubb. He comes from the college game. He was at the University of Washington, and he was really the guy that helped turn Michael Penix into one of the best quarterbacks in college football. Everyone at this time last year wanted him to be their new offensive coordinator. Like Nick Saban wanted to hire him at Alabama. Ryan Day wanted to hire him at Ohio State, but he lands in Seattle. And although there's a lot of talent on both sides of the ball, my expectations for the Seahawks honestly aren't really that high this season. I think they're going to take a step back, playing in a tough NFC West without Pete Carroll. I think Geno Smith is a good quarterback you could win with, and really his numbers last season weren't as bad as I expected when deep diving into them. But similar to the Raiders and Minshew, I just think Seattle is going to be a team that at this time next year is looking for a new quarterback, and most likely it will come in the draft. So I will have Geno Smith at number 23. The final two quarterbacks on this list, at number 22, I'm going to go with Sam Darnold of the Vikings. And Lil, I thought you made some very good points on Sam Darnold last week when you mentioned him on your list. So I'm going to continue where you left off. I'm going to say this right now. I think the Minnesota Vikings are the most slept on team in the NFL at the moment. They have a ton of talent outside of that quarterback position in Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson. I love the addition of Aaron Jones at running back. I actually think Green Bay made a mistake letting him walk to a division rival for Josh Jacobs. And as crazy as this might sound, I was actually more impressed with Kevin O'Connell and the coaching job that he did last season when they won 7 games compared to the season prior when they won 13 games and they made the playoffs when we all knew that was just a fluke. But last year, Kevin O'Connell had Josh Dobbs playing quarterback and looking like a guy you could win with. Like, they were winning games with him. And a huge what if for me is, and I've said this on the show a bunch over the course of the last few months, I wonder if the Vikings last season could have been the team that challenged San Francisco in the NFC last year if Kirk Cousins stayed healthy. We literally saw them do it on Monday Night Football. And I know the attention is on J.J. McCarthy, right, as a rookie first-round pick that just won a national championship. But I do think Sam Darnold, Will, I think you said this last week, like, I think he's going to be this year's version of Geno Smith that we saw in Seattle 2 years ago. I think he's going to be the version of Baker Mayfield that we saw in Tampa Bay last year. I know the guy failed early in his career because of a poor situation, but now he finally found the right one. And I think he's going to have success in Minnesota with those weapons. And I think Kevin O'Connell is going to be the coach that puts him in a great position to succeed. I also think I'll end on Darnold with this. I think he's going to play the whole season because this Vikings team is going to be competing for a playoff berth. I think that J.J. McCarthy, not Drake May, is going to be the first-round quarterback that went in this past draft that spends the entire season on the bench. Because Sam Darnold is playing so well, the Vikings are just not going to have a choice to bench him. I will have Sam Darnold at number 22. And at number 21, the last guy on this list, I'm going to change my tune here. I'm going to have Deshaun Watson of the Browns at number 21. I think this whole situation is really just a shame because 2-52, I think the Cleveland Browns have one of the most talented rosters in the entire NFL. I think that Kevin Stefanski proved last season that he is one of the premier coaches in the NFL. The fact that he was able to win games with 4 different quarterbacks last season was pretty impressive, and I think he deserved the Coach of the Year award. But I also think the unfortunate reality in Cleveland is that as long as Deshaun Watson is playing quarterback, I'm just not going to take this team seriously. I don't think it's a coincidence that they decided to let Joe Flacco go to the Colts in free agency because they knew that if Deshaun Watson wasn't playing well, all the fans would do is call for Flacco to take Watson's spot because they saw Flacco win last year, play really well, and lead them to the playoffs. If the amount of money we're paying Watson, like if they were paying him less money, I think they would be more convinced and more interested in moving off of him, but they have no choice but to put him on the field. Last season was the second year in a row that the Cleveland Browns were just a flat-out better football team when Watson was on the bench and someone else was playing quarterback. We remember Jacoby Brissett was very good 2 years ago. Last year they were better with Flacco. And I really don't want to hear about Watson having one okay game against the Ravens before he got hurt, because we have a much larger sample size of him playing in 11 other games in a Browns uniform, and he wasn't good in any one of them. You know, that season he had in 2020 when he was leading the NFL in passing yards with Bill O'Brien and the Texans, that was just a long time ago. I don't think he's the same player anymore, and I've said this many times. I just think that trade and that contract is going to go down as the single worst transaction in the history of the NFL, and Cleveland is really going to have to pay for it. So I will have Deshaun Watson at number 21. So to recap my list, I will have Gardner Minshew of the Raiders at 26, Jaden Daniels of the Commanders at 25, Bryce Young of the Panthers at 24, Geno Smith of the Seahawks at 23, Sam Darnold of the Vikings at 22, and finally Deshaun Watson of the Browns at 21.
All right, Zach. I want to go ahead with mine, and then after I'm done, we can kind of go back and forth and react to each other's rankings and do it like that. I'm going to recap what I got so far. At number 32, what it do? I got Bo Nix. At number 31, I got Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby! I got him. He ain't Kobe, though. Okay. Number 30, I got Gardner Minshew. Minshew Mania, right? At number 29, I got Bryce Young at number 29. Yep, I do. Bryce Young. He might be Bryce old after next year. If he keep getting hit, he's going to be old quickly. Bryce old, not young. Okay? Protect that man. That's why I got him that low. I protect my guy. Okay? At number 28, I got Sam Darnold at number 28. And at number 27, I got Jaden Daniels, right? Not McDaniels. He doesn't play for the Wolves, but he might be a Wolf. Okay? And that's where I'm at right now. So at number 26, I'm going to pick up where I left off. I'm going to go with Daniel Jones at number 26, right? King of New York. Right? Yeah. No, I'm just joking, okay? At number 26, I'm going to go with Daniel Jones. And the reason why I'm going to go with Daniel Jones, or maybe I'll go with Aaron Rodgers, right? Psych, I'm playing. Aaron Rodgers is nowhere near here yet, right? Daniel Jones, man, let's talk about this guy for a second. Let me stop playing games, because I think for me, his situation is very unique. You know, obviously, the draft pick itself garnered a lot of headlines. New York didn't want him from the start. I'm talking about the fan base. They never reacted to him like they wanted him. And he was chasing that, you know, throughout his career, along with trying to get acclimated to the NFL, right? Obviously, 2 seasons ago, he had that decent year where he threw for 3,200 plus yards, and he had a 15-5 touchdown to interception ratio, and he tapped into a little bit of that potential I thought he had when watching film. I remember watching film of this guy, you know, and this was the year prior, right, when we did our quarterback rankings. I had him at like number 23 or 4. And I got a lot of flack for that, for having him that high, and he goes on and win a playoff game. And that's because the reason why I was able to project, right, and that's the key word here when doing these rankings is projections, right, because clearly Zach is projecting Caleb Williams to be a star because he doesn't have him yet. I did the same thing with Daniel Jones, and he won the playoff game, and I got rewarded for that, okay? I did my politicking tour, and my politicking tour for Daniel Jones is all but over. And a lot of reasons why it is because he just hasn't been in a situation to succeed. All right, my guy's getting decked. It's almost like the offensive line unit has a bounty on this guy's head. Oh, let him do, let him do, let him do. Okay, let him get in. Not even blocking the defensive lineman. Okay, step to the side, move out the way, take him out. Come on, man. And when you're a quarterback and you're constantly being pressured, you can't even get past your first read. A lot of what it takes to be a successful quarterback, and I'm preaching right now in today's game, is being able to process what you're seeing and go through progression. Daniel Jones doesn't have that opportunity to go through progression, because when he's trying to go through progression, he's getting taught a lesson because he's getting sacked in the daggone pocket. Okay, and then you look at the wide receivers. Okay, let's talk about them clowns. Wan'Dale Robinson. Okay. Darius Slayton, okay, and I like this dude too, but not a number 1 for sure. Isaiah Hodgins, okay, come on, what are we dodging? Okay, Isaiah Hodgins, we dodging? Like, come on, those are the guys this guy's throwing to. And I said this before, and I'm pretty sure, I believe the GM said this before as well, that if Patrick Mahomes was in this same situation, we'll be talking about Patrick Mahomes similar. May not be at that type of level. We may see some potential because he know how to throw the rock. Oh, he threw the deep ball. He got some talent. He need to get out of there. Maybe we'll have that tone, but it still wouldn't have be success like we be talking about, like how we do with him. So I think for me, and I'm gonna wrap it up here with Daniel Jones. I think them drafting Malik Neighbors was a start, and attacking the O-line of free agency to kind of give him some backbone of support. Malik Neighbors should be able to add some juice to the offense as well. And I just think it's going to be hard for Daniel Jones, even if I do think he could have a year like he did 2 years ago. It's going to be very tough because nobody wants him. As I said before in my opening statement, nobody wanted him to begin with. And right now, I mean, you look at Tommy DeVito last year, he was the most famous person in New York. And right now, that's Drew Lock. He's the most famous person in New York, and he hasn't even played because everybody wants to see him over Daniel Jones. That's what Daniel Jones is chasing right now, and that's why I don't have him higher than 26. At number 25, I'm gonna go with Will Levis at number 25. I think the Titans have done a very decent job adding talent, to build around the quarterback who is on his rookie deal, right? Giving him Calvin Ridley, even though they overpaid that guy, for what it's worth from what he did last year. Obviously coming back, a lot of drops, and you paid him $94 million, something to that effect. And, I get it, but when you're in a situation when you have a quarterback on his rookie deal, you could overpay guys, right? And hope that they give you some maximum return for that value that you invested, right? And you sign him, you sign Tyler Boyd, right? You're adding, to the line. You're doing your best to give this guy support, and you give him a new head coach in Brian Callahan from the Bengals, former OC over there. And I don't know what to expect from him as far as how effective he's going to be as a play caller. When you say Bengals, I say Burrow. You say Bengals, I say Burrow, or Chase as well, or T. Higgins, right? I don't really look at that guy, right? I don't really think of Brian Callahan when you're talking about the Bengals, right? It'd be a lot of other players I think before him. So I don't know what to expect from him as a play caller. But if we talk about Will Levis specifically and address his skill set, I think for me, he has a strong arm. We know that he can make a lot of the throws on the football field. The guy has a cannon. We all know he has the moxie, right? That Dolphins game, I remember that Dolphins game. The Dolphins could have clinched the number 1 seed, if I'm not mistaken, in the AFC if they won that game. And he said, no, my brother, you're not going to clinch the number 1 seed. You're going to be going to Kansas City. And he went over there and had a very gusty performance. And that performance really garnered some of my respect, right? Now, what I think is wrong with Will Levis that he has to check, and I hope he addresses this year when watching film, is knowing that there were opportunities for underneath wide receivers in them underneath routes, in the short yardage situations. There were too many times when I was watching film because clear, I do a lot of preparation when I'm doing these rankings, right? I want to get it right. I want to get as close to perfect as possible here. So I'm watching a lot of film. And there was a lot of times where I see him and he's taking the shot play, no risking, no biscuit, but there was a guy in the underneath route that could have got him a first down to keep the drive extended. One prime example of that was against the Steelers, Thursday Night Football. I believe it was the last couple minutes of the game. You need the first down to keep the drive extended, to give yourself a chance to win the game. And it's 4th and 4, right? 4th and 4. And this guy takes a shot all the way up the sideline to Treylon Burks, a low percentage throw for a guy, by the way, who's struggling, okay? Who was struggling to even make an impact on that team last year. And on 4th and 4, instead of going underneath, you took a shot play up the sideline, a low percentage throw that ended the game. No, I need to see him make improvements in those areas for me to rank him higher. I'm going to go with Will Levis at 25. At number 24, okay, we're going to talk about this guy right here, Mr. PR himself, okay, Mr. Dangerous, okay, he's not dangerous anymore, okay, he's my business partner, even though he's my head coach, Mr. I got my own office, Mr. This, Mr. That. Can you play football, my guy? Okay. Russell Wilson. I'm going to go with him at number 24. And I thought he was a decent game manager last year. I thought he did a solid job. Numbers wasn't flashy, but, he got the job done. He made up for an abysmal year the year before, one of the worst years I've ever seen. He made up for that last year. And you know, I think he did a decent job turning negative plays into positive plays, right? He didn't give you that, Wilson of old, but there were times when watching film against the Bills where it looked like he was about to be sacked and he was able to scramble just enough and make a positive play out of a negative play, which keeps drives alive, right? And that's why they ended up winning that game, because of him and his improv ability, which is declining. Not the same guy, clearly, when you watch tape, but he could do a little bit of things to really win you games when you really think about it. And he has that experience, which is why I ranked him a little bit higher than what you had him, Zach. Okay. Now, with that being said, you look at him as a quarterback and he doesn't utilize the middle of the field. If you watch the tape, you're not going to find a lot of middle of the field throws. He doesn't do it. He can't see over the lineman. He can't. Okay. A lot of what he does well is throwing those goal balls up the sideline. And I think, Arthur Smith is a good fit with him because he's going to run the football and utilize the play action, which I think could benefit him. However, Arthur Smith wants a quarterback who can throw in the middle of the field as well. That's part of his scheme as well. When he does decide to pass the ball, he wants his guys to target the middle of the field, which is why I think Pat Frymuth is probably going to have a deep decline in production. Whereas with Kenny Pickett, that was his go-to guy because Kenny Pickett felt comfortable throwing the ball to him up the seams. And obviously, Wilson is not going to utilize Pat Frymuth. So Pat Frymuth, you might as well just go home, bro. Go home. You're not getting the ball, bro. With all due respect, take your money, fake an injury, and go home. Otherwise, you're just going to be out here killing time. Okay? With all due respect. Okay? And when you look at, this situation that I want to dive into right now, even though I have Wilson ranked, and it's not high, right? 21 through 32 was low tier, right? So it's not like I have him like crazy high than what he's supposed to be. It's low tier. I don't think of him as what he was, when he won the championship. But with that being said, Mike Tomlin should be starting Justin Fields right now. He should be the guy week 1, okay? Because Mike Tomlin has not developed any quarterback since he's been coaching. And he all of a sudden just has a job that's so stable, he doesn't have to worry about being fired. He doesn't have to worry about not winning playoff games. And he hasn't developed anybody. Nobody. Okay? Big Ben was inheritance. Okay? Who has Mike Tomlin developed? Keith Sweat, you want to sing it for me? Nobody. Okay? Nobody. Okay? He didn't develop Kenny Pickett. He botched Kenny Pickett's development. He didn't save Mitch Trubisky's career. He should be wanting to take on the task of saving a quarterback who has potential in Justin Fields. Sure, he may not be the best quarterback within structure. Yeah, maybe part of what makes him effective is outside structure. I get it, but the talent is there. He's very mobile. He can make the plays. He could be like a mini Lamar Jackson. You got Lamar Jackson who was drafted. I'm preaching right now. You got Lamar Jackson who 31 teams passed on this guy. Lamar who? Jackson? What? Michael Jackson? He playing football now? I don't know nothing about Lamar Jackson now. Okay? But the Ravens drafted Lamar Jackson. That was looked to be as a project. And they developed him into Lamar Jackson, a 2-time MVP. Okay? You mean to tell me, Mike Tomlin, you're scared to replicate that with Justin Fields, who has similar skill sets? Okay? Where we going to go and pay homage to Wilson because of what he did years ago? Okay? No, this is why I hate the Steelers with all due respect. Okay, if you a Steelers fan, you can kiss my black ass. Okay, because I'm tired of y'all cats out here acting like this ain't a problem. Acting like y'all gonna win a championship when y'all not. Acting like y'all gonna win a playoff game when y'all not. Y'all not. Okay, so even though I got Wilson here and I'm in here at number 24, he shouldn't be starting week 1. Let's be clear on that. It should be Fields. Anyway, we're gonna move on to number 23. Okay, and I'm gonna go with Derek Carr. Okay, now we have to come to the realization here that year that he had in 2016, I believe, where he had that MVP caliber year, that was an aberration. That was an anomaly. Okay, that's not something that's going to happen ever again. Okay, with all due respect. He's not that dude. He's not that guy. Okay, and part of what I used to like about Derek Carr, by the way, was I thought he was a good leader. I thought, right? He showed that to the public. I'm a great leader. Yeah. And other guys is like, yeah, yeah, yeah. You know what I'm saying? Passion, right? He's a leader. That's a guy crying at press conferences, okay? Crying. That's a leader. I want to play for that guy. But you talk about the ending with the Raiders and, oh, you're not going to play because you suck. Oh, I'm not going to show up. Screw the team, okay? Oh, the Jaguars game last year on a new team. I'm trying to rewrite my image because it ended a little bit, salty over there. Oh, I'm yelling at teammates. I'm going at teammates because they didn't make a play. That's not leadership, bruh. That's not leadership, bruh. Okay, that is not leadership. If you cannot handle your emotions, you cannot lead. With all due respect, okay? And Derek Carr is not a leader, and he's not a great quarterback. However, I do have him ranked, at 22 because I do think he can win you some games. I thought last year they ended on a good note, a little bit too late. I mean, the NFC, South was so wide open like a prostitute's legs. So wide open. Hello, you can win it, and then you waited to the last couple games to show us something. By that, the Buccaneers already won the daggone joint. Okay, you had ample opportunities to win that division. Okay, and you decided to the last two games to play good. Okay, and I do think a lot of it too. I do believe they got Clint Kubiak, a guy that's going to be calling plays that is fresh off of that Kyle Shanahan type of tree that brings you that quarterback friendly offense. So, and the running game should be better because of that scheme, right? That scheme definitely makes the running game better. So if Derek Carr cannot have decent success with that offensive higher change, with that new system, then he's going to be ranked lower, way lower than where we have him today. So I got him at number 22. Okay, excuse me, number 23. At number 22, I'm gonna go with, it's funny, Robert Griffin. His nickname was RG3, and this one is AR-15. We talking about ammunition, folks. I'm going with Anthony Richardson at number 22. What it do? Okay. Now look, the potential is bigger than what film can justify right now. Now, if you watch film, this is too high. Okay, if you watch the film, this is too high to have him. Okay, but I'm going and I ain't banking and I ain't buying stock while the stock is low. Okay, when it comes to upside here. Okay, because I do believe he has the physical attributes to be successful, right? But when you look at film, there is a little bit of concerns. Can he make the NFL routine throws? We know he can make the special throws, but can he make the routine throws? Okay, film hasn't showed me that yet. Okay. Now, Florida film hasn't shown me that yet either, okay? But I do think, and I do believe in his upside. I do believe in his mobility. I do believe in his talent. I do believe in his arm strength. I do believe in Jonathan Taylor and that RPO game that they're going to have running, okay? I do believe in Shane Steichen's play calling, okay? I really do. I'm a firm believer that Shane Steichen is a top 5 play caller in the NFL. Top 5, without a doubt, okay? The guy knows how to call a daggone play, okay? So I'm going to bank on that specifically. I'm going to bank on the upside specifically, and I'm going to rank him higher than what film can justify at the current moment, okay? I got Anthony Richardson at number 22. And at number 21, I'm going to go with the guy you're looking at here, and Caleb Williams. Now, I did thought about ranking him one spot higher than this, right? I'm not gonna go past 20. I'm not smoking gas. Okay, with all due respect, I'm not gonna have it. I'm not gonna lose my head here. Okay, I did thought about ranking him one spot higher, maybe 2 spots higher at most, but I had to come back to the reality. Lil, you haven't seen the guy play yet. He could be an all-time bust. Okay, make sure you take some insurance out when ranking this guy. Okay, because I understand the Bears did a phenomenal job building around this guy. I understand he has the intangibles that it looks on film to succeed in the NFL. I get it, can make the throws, flick of the wrist. He looks like Aaron Rodgers more so than Pat Mahomes to me. But some people compare him to Pat Mahomes. Bottom line, those are 2 good comparisons to compare a quarterback to. Okay, but at the end of the day, I made this mistake, this fatal mistake, plenty of times when doing my rankings. History check, folks. Sam Darnold. I thought he was going to break out when he went to the Panthers. Guess what? He didn't. Let's go to a rookie quarterback that I ranked before. I'm trying to think of the name. AR-15, I had him right around where I had him this year, last year. And guess what? I was wrong. Got hurt. And even before he got hurt, he was trying to fit in. Okay, he had a very good game against the Rams, but that was it, right? I made a mistake. Same thing with Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence, man, I ranked this guy high. Rookie, he's a generational prospect. We got an all hell King Trevor. Okay, everybody was talking about Trevor Lawrence, bro. Okay, you think Caleb Williams was talked about and hyped about? Trevor Lawrence was more. Okay, and I ranked him high. I bought into that Kool-Aid. I drank the Kool-Aid before I looked in the Kool-Aid to see if it was poison. Okay, and I was wrong on Trevor Lawrence. I'm still waiting for that breakout to this day. To this day. Deontay Wilder to this day. And that's why I'm going to go with Caleb Williams here. And I'm not going to go any higher. And I don't want to go any higher until I see film. Okay, in the NFL. Now, I do believe Ryan Poles did a phenomenal job building around him, giving him toys, giving him Keenan Allen, giving him DeAndre Swift, giving him, Gerald Everett, giving him a lot of toys, right? And I do believe that we are going to look back after the season and be like, yo, we got our guy. And I think if you're the Biz, you should keep your expectations minimal. He's going to make mistakes. Hello? He's a rookie. He's going to make mistakes. You can sign Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, whoever you want, Calvin Johnson, all those guys in one team. He's still going to make mistakes. He's a rookie. Okay? You could sign the dream team. He's a rookie. Okay? He's going to make mistakes. But I do believe when the season ends, he's probably not going to get to that mark of 4,000 yards that Chicago wants that quarterback to finally pass for 4,000 yards. He's probably not going to do that. But I feel by the end of the season, we are going to look back and be like, okay, Biz, we got ourselves a guy, okay? And his name is Caleb Williams. And that's my guy at 21. So to recap my list, at number 26, I'm going to go with Daniel Jones. At number 25, I'm going to go with Will Levis. At number 24, I'm going to go with Russell Wilson. At number 23, I'm going to go with Derek Carr. At number 22, I'm going to go with AR-15. And at number 21, I'm going to go with Caleb Williams.
Yeah, well, so solid list. I'm going to respond to yours with the first thing that came to mind for me. And this is more of just a preference thing, right? Like I've noticed not only this year, but, we've been doing this list for a few years back. We spoke about it a lot. But in my list personally, I'm projecting a little bit more. Like, I totally understand that Anthony Richardson has only played in 4 career NFL games. I totally understand that Caleb Williams hasn't played in an NFL game yet. And based on that criteria, it's hard to justify ranking them higher or lower than the other person has them. But that's where the projections for me come in. I do think by the end of the year, we're going to look back and say, man, the Colts have their guy in Anthony Richardson, and this guy has the potential to be a complete superstar. The same thing could be said for Caleb Williams. And just getting into those two specifically, with Richardson, it's funny. I remember last offseason when Shane Steichen came out and announced that he was going to be the starting quarterback from week 1. I'm not going to lie. I got a pit in my stomach. I was like, damn. Based on what I saw at Florida, I don't know if this guy is necessarily going to be ready to come in right away and produce on an NFL field, because based on what I saw in college, he just looked so raw. And I think he would have to take a year to develop. But I'm not going to lie. I know it was only 4 games, but he looked much better than I thought in 4 games. I thought he showed he could make NFL throws. He had a couple specific moments and a couple of specific plays where you're just like, wow, like there's not many other guys in the league that have the potential to do that. And based on my list, I think that potential is so high that I'm going to rank him that high, and we'll see how it plays out. I think for me, I'm going to be willing to take that risk. And the same thing could be said for Caleb Williams. I think I've said this a bunch on this show. I think the thing about Caleb Williams that's a difference maker for me is that even though he has the same hype as guys like Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence and Andrew Luck, that situation that Ryan Poles gave him in Chicago is so much better and so different, because those teams were literally relying on those guys to come in right away and save the franchise. Like I do think a big reason why Trevor Lawrence hasn't lived up to that hype that you were mentioning was because they gave him Urban Meyer as his head coach in his first year. And instead, Caleb Williams is going to a team that won 7 games last year and they got better. If Caleb Williams is the 21st best quarterback in the league this year, I think that's going to be a massive disappointment for the Bears. And I think that Chicago, I'm higher on them, where I do think he's going to be better than that. So I just think this is a difference in our list, and that's fine. It's just a preference thing, but I'm taking a little bit more risk in my list. I'm betting on some things that we just haven't necessarily seen yet that I truly believe are going to happen. And I just think that's a preference thing. That's just
Yeah.
a clear difference in our list.
I mean, look, I'm the one, believe it or not, Zach, when we first started this, I was the one doing majority of the projections, right? I'm the one that probably convinced you to start doing that, and hey, when you take risks, you get burnt. And when you get burnt, you're more conservative. I'm not like Brandon Staley that keep going for it on fourth down. Okay, go for it, go for it. No, you're not converting. No, go for it, go for it. I'm not idiotic like that. Like, I'm not gonna keep going for it if I'm missing. There was a couple guys that I ranked, and I'm not ashamed to say it at all because I hit on a lot of guys, right? But there was some guys that I projected. Justin Fields, we both did. We had him in our top 15 last year. Was he a top 15 quarterback last year? Hell to the nah. He wasn't. That was over projection, over projecting, right there. Daniel Jones, I was right with my first projection of him, right? I had him 23, 24. He won a playoff game. That's just about right, right? But then we see him in a playoff game, and we both rank him like in the top 15, number 11 that's high, or number 12, one of those places. And was he a 11 or 12 quarterback last year? Hell to the nah. Okay. So sometimes I think when we do these projections and where it gets tricky, me personally, I've gotten burned a couple times. Trevor Lawrence, right? Rookie year, sell high on him. Excuse me, I buy high on him, right? I rank him higher than what film could show because he didn't play yet. And guess what? I got burned. Then next year, he wins a playoff game. I buy more stock. It was an okay year. It wasn't spectacular, but he won a playoff game. I buy more stock than what I should have. And I ranked him in the top 10 last year because I'm projecting an MVP caliber season. Was it an MVP caliber season last year? Hell to the nah. So basically, Zach, in closing, I've gotten burned a couple times, and I'm not gonna lie, I played this list a little bit more conservative, probably more conservative than I've ever done since doing the list, because I do realize that me doing the projections, I start to get crazy. I start to go with physical attributes and intangibles over making routine throws. I start to get blinded by, oh, he could throw the football 70, 80 yards, and I'm not watching other little things. So that's why my list is a little bit more conservative than yours.
But would you agree? And for the record, like, both of us picked the Bears as our number one winners of the offseason. We both love what Ryan Poles did. You would agree, though, if Caleb Williams, and I understand he's a rookie, like, I don't want to make the expectations too high, but if he is the 21st best quarterback in the NFL this year, you agree that's going to be a disappointment, right?
I mean, I don't think it will be, because as long as he could show a flash or two, then I think, we have to be patient. That's where patience come in, right? You're not going to have a guy that's going to be Joe Montana after his rookie year. All right, let's use a rookie model, right, to compare. RG3 probably had arguably the best rookie season of any quarterback that I've seen since I've been watching football, that is. And it was a spectacular year. The guy looked like a vet, right? But at the end of the day, that's not going to be the norm all the time. You're going to have, a learning curve, right? You're going to have to learn the playbook. Get familiar with the playbook. That's a big thing as well. Then you got the defense that you're going up against, in your division. I like the Packers and what they're building. I like the Vikings and how they played last year and how they're going to, in another year in Florida's system, amp that up. I like the Lions and what they added to that secondary to make a whole a threat now. There's going to be interceptions. There's going to be mistakes. I just have to kind of, this is high. This is higher than what it's supposed to be. The guy haven't played yet. I got him at 21 over guys that won playoff games.
Of course,
okay?
But when you rank him 21, you're saying like 16 is average, right? That's right in the middle. So you're saying he's going to be a below average quarterback this year. And I don't buy that.
Nah. So let me be specific here. Even though 21 through 32 is below tier, the rookie quarterbacks are there because I haven't seen them. So part of what I do is I have to take in consideration, who do I think is getting benched and when? Who do I think is mediocre? And I got to match that with rookies and managing my expectations, and that's what I'm taking consideration when I'm doing these rankings. So even though he's a bottom tier quarterback, clear right now on my list, we haven't seen him yet. So I can't call him a bottom tier quarterback because I haven't seen. I can't call him a high tier quarterback because I haven't seen him. I have him here as a placeholder so I can see what he does on film. Clear, Zach. It's July 10th. Training camps haven't even started. I don't know what to expect from Caleb Williams right off the gate. Maybe if we have preseason, maybe, he'll show me something. I'll be like, oh, this guy should be top 15. But as of right now, July 10th, 6:19 p.m., and there's not a lot, here. I got to rank him at 21 for me.
I got you, dude. So before we move on, what'd you think of my portion of the list? Anything stand out?
Yeah, I definitely want to bring up, let's go to, there's a couple. Let's start with Gardner Minshew for a second, right? Because, that situation is very unique in the sense that, the Raiders, they didn't really have like a opportunity to have a developed quarterback plan, right? Like other teams, like the Vikings, right? A two-step plan. This is the bridge. This is the future, right? And this is our bridge to the future. The Raiders don't have that. They have a stopping gap. They have a quarterback who, Aiden O'Connell, below average, clearly. If he was ranked on this list, he'll be 32. Okay. And they have a bunch of toys, right? So when you talk about Gardner Minshew and the drop off in play calling, do you think he should be lower? Even though you have him low, I'm not going to trip over where you have him. But like, how do you see his season playing out? Do you think he starts? Do you think he finishes? Do you think it's like a carousel thing where one guy's in and one guy's out? He playing bad, the other one out, you back in? Because when you look at guys under Shane Steichen and after, they have regressed. Justin Herbert after Shane Steichen, his best year was his rookie year, regress. Same thing with Jalen Hurts after Shane Steichen, regress. So many guys regress after they lose Shane Steichen. Will Gardner Minshew be that next one?
Definitely. And people forget, and this is also another reason I don't have Richardson ranked yet. Like, the Colts were one play away from winning the AFC South last year. Like, I know the Texans have a ton of hype right now, but people don't realize, like, those two teams played in a de facto AFC championship game, right? That was week 18. And that was a close game that went down to the wire. And wasn't that there was that one pass where the Colts running back like had the ball in his hands and he dropped it on 4th and 1. And if he converts that first down, there's a good chance the Colts, not the Texans with Gardner Minshew, win the AFC South. But I think you make a good point about the post-Steichen regression. I agree with you. I do think he's one of the best play callers in the sport. And, we're not fans of Luke Getsy. I thought that was a super underwhelming hire by the Raiders. But it is interesting. I do think, situation aside, Minshew is clearly one of the 32 best quarterbacks in the league. Like, I think you could win with him. And I do, like, I'm telling you, the Raiders have more talent than people realize. Devontae Adams is still in his prime. Jacoby Myers is phenomenal. I think he's one of the most underrated players in the league. Brock Bowers should be really good. You have Max Crosby. They brought in Christian Wilkins on defense. I just think the coaching is such a question mark. And maybe O'Connell gets in there at some point. I just think the Raiders at best are like an 8-9 team, and coaching has a lot to do with that.
Speaking of play calling, right? I got another question. One more question. Maybe two more. We'll see how it goes. Let's go to Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota and talk about Sam Darnold, right? Because clearly you're banking on upside and projections, right? That's where the projections come in, where you have him at 22. And for me, I have him at 28, I believe it's 28, something to that effect, right? Bottom line, what happened today. Now, there is potential, and we know that. We know he can make those on the football field. We know that he was a highly regarded guy, went 3 overall, in the draft. And we want to see him tap into that potential that we haven't got to see as of yet. And he goes into a situation. You have to love the situation. It's one of the best situations in the NFL. You can argue it's even better than the Bears situation, right? Because you have the number 1 wide receiver. You have the second
before you get into that, I'll ask you this. I think on the show, even before Brock Purdy really established himself as the clear-cut QB1 in San Francisco. I'm old enough to remember when people were saying like, oh, the leash on Brock Purdy shouldn't be that long. Like San Francisco should go to Sam Darnold if he struggles and he could have success in that Shanahan system. I'm not saying Minnesota is San Francisco. You know, Kyle Shanahan is probably the best play caller in the league, right up there with Andy Reid.
That's where I want to get into, Zach, because literally you got a guy in Kevin O'Connell. You got a guy in Kevin O'Connell who I thought at times last year called games beautifully, especially that 49ers game. He had a great game. He had a great season. And you said in your lap that was his best season over the year. They won the playoff game, and I agree.
They didn't even win a playoff
Is he
game.
good enough? Yeah, they didn't win the playoff game before they had that year that they went to the playoffs and only lost 4 games, whatever. But is he on that Kyle Shanahan level where the play calling, the ecosystem is so good that Sam Darnold cannot fail over there? Is he a Sean McVay? Is he, on that level? Obviously, he's not those guys. I prefer those guys over him. But is he in that space where Sam Darnold, it would be almost impossible for him to fail?
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think he's Kyle Shanahan, but he really impressed me last year. And again, if Kirk Cousins doesn't get hurt, I think the Vikings could have went to the Super Bowl last year. I really believe that. And I know that's going to sound like a hot take, but they beat the 49ers.
My room all of a sudden got hot just now after you made that take. It was nice and decent here. I got the central air blasting, but when you just said that, I'm hot all of a sudden.
Like, I'm going to look it up. Do we remember what Aaron Jones did in that playoff game against the Cowboys last year? Like, he literally...
Oh, he was cooking. Even against the 49ers, Aaron Jones was cooking.
They literally couldn't stop him. So in that game, he had 19 carries for 125 yards and 1 touchdown. I'm a big Aaron Jones fan.
It's funny because I may be delivering you right back at you a hot take that may hot up your room, but Aaron Jones, to me, his situation is like Kawhi Leonard. That's not a guy that you want to play so much in the regular season because of the wear and tear in his injury history. Remember last year, before he went on that run, he was missing a lot of games. Okay, and that's when Jordan Love was struggling because he had that guy to hand the ball off to. He missed a big chunk of last year, and then he got healthy, went on a tirade. That's a guy who I look at like how you handle Kawhi Leonard is how you handle him. He's not going to play a full, 17 games. He's going to miss a couple games. You could book it, but if you can get him right and be in position to make the playoffs, that's a guy that you would probably want to have on your team. But they got to get there first.
Yeah, and I think even just making the playoffs with Darnold or McCarthy, whoever it is, that would be a successful season. Big fan of Brian Flores as well. What's up?
One more question. I know I keep interrupting you. I want to stay here because I thought about this the other day. Is there a scenario, like what if Sam Darnold wins a playoff game? Does that change anything as far as your future plans with JJ? Like, what if he wins a playoff game? What if he gets you there? Does that change anything?
I mean, yeah, I think it depends how the season goes. I mean, I think Sam Darnold is young enough where I don't think his career is just over, and this is definitely the last chance. Like, if he doesn't succeed now, he never will. But yeah, I mean, like to be, this is gonna sound crazy, but I'm gonna say it, man. This situation reminds me a little bit of Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes with Andy Reid in Kansas City. Now, luckily for the Chiefs, Alex Smith lost that first playoff game, Mahomes' rookie year, when he sat against the Titans. So it was pretty easy for the Chiefs to pivot because they knew they couldn't win anything with Alex Smith. Like he got them to the playoffs, but the ceiling just wasn't there. I feel like Sam Darnold, and ironically, like Alex Smith was also, he was a former number 1 overall pick who Andy Reid just turned his career around. And I wonder if Kevin O'Connell could do the same with Sam Darnold.
All right, Zach, you got any more questions for me? I'm pretty much in mine.
I think we're good for the most part. Daniel Jones, you had him a little bit higher than I did. I think we forget that he's coming off a torn ACL. I just wonder if the injuries, everything that went on in New York, like I just don't think he's in a great spot. I do think we're going to see a lot of Drew Lock during the Hard Knocks episode last night too. Like they showed, it was really cool. They showed the coaches' interviews with all of the quarterback prospects, and kind of the narrative coming out of that Hard Knocks episode was, man, this kid Drake May, he really impressed. He was able to recite all the plays back to Brian Dable in no problem. And man, I feel like there are a lot of Giant fans waking up this morning who are actually pretty upset with Tommy DeVito because he won them those few games that really, increase their draft position. And the Giants, we know they tried to move up for Drake May. They didn't do it. I thought they should have done whatever they could, but they weren't able to get a deal done with the Patriots. So, yeah, I don't think Jones is in a great spot. But besides that, I think your list was good, and looking forward to the next segment next week when we're continuing.
Yeah, I'll just finish off, with the Daniel Jones. We can end here. I think for me, I'm torn because I know, based on my knowledge of watching football all these years, that part of good quarterback play and competent quarterback play is developing the quarterback. And the Giants have done a terrible job doing that. And I also know that Daniel Jones is not perfect. Clearly, he's not. But he does have things that you like, and you just wonder. You kind of like fantasize putting him in another situation and thinking, okay, will that situation turn out better? Right? You play that game, and you can't really play that game because at the end of the day, you got to go with what you see, what you know. And I think for me, I could see this going two ways. Remember, when he won the playoff game 2 years ago, that was a contract year. He was playing for something. Okay, he was playing for money. Yeah, I gotta eat, bro. I gotta get that generational wealth. Okay, that $140 million, I believe it was, right? 140 or 60. I think it was 60. $160 million, something like that. Right? I gotta play for that bag, bro. Now, this year, we all know it's a make or break year for him. We all know the fans want to see Drew Lock. And I can see a scenario where he kind of have a similar year than what he had 2 years ago, where he's playing for something. He's playing for his job, right? Or I could see this season being a continuation of the mess that was created last season. So
yeah, and I went into that a little bit last week. Like, I don't think all of Jones's shortcomings at all in New York are solely on him. His two coaches besides Dable, before Dable, I should say, were both terrible. He didn't have any wide receivers. And I just think it's too little too late. Like, the injuries are really starting to pile up. Who knows if they got their offensive line figured out. And yeah, even though I think Malik Neighbors is going to be really good, I think they're going to miss Saquon Barkley as well.
Please like and subscribe for all the up-to-date content. You've been slinging shows left and right, slinging content left and right. Please don't miss anything. If you do, like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a question, something you may want to answer, something you may have. All ideas are great ideas. Nothing's a dumb question.